Welcome to the continuation of transport in mammals. So far, we've looked at the heart. In this video, we're going to take a look at blood vessels and we'll also look at part of the blood. In the next video, we'll finish up blood and we'll look at another transport system called the lymphatic system. Let's get started. So what are blood vessels? These are simply tubes through which blood moves around the body. There are three types of blood vessels. These are arteries, veins, and capillaries. So we're going to take a look at each of these. We'll look at their functions and the features that they have that makes them do what they do well. And after that, from the shared information, you'll be able to compare. We'll also look at the diagrams for the arteries, veins, and capillaries so that we look at those features that enables them do what they do. So we're going to start with a comparison of an artery and a vein, or the structures that makes up an artery and a vein. So as you can see, this is an artery and this is a vein. So some notable features is in both of these are in the vein we have valves, these valves here. Okay, well, in the artery we don't have valves. The purpose of the valves, just like those ones in the heart, is to prevent backflow of the blood. So they make sure that blood doesn't flow backwards. Okay, so when blood goes, when it's about to flow backwards, it's going to be trapped by the valves, and therefore blood can only flow forwards. Well, in arteries there are no valves, so this should make us wonder how blood flows in one direction instead of flowing backwards in the arteries. The other feature which is noticeable about arteries and veins is arteries have thick holes, well, veins don't have. Veins have a thin hole. Then also arteries have the middle part is called a lamen. So arteries have a small lamen, well, veins have a large lamen. So we're going to start with arteries. So the function of the arteries is to carry blood away from the heart to other parts of the body. Remember, when we were studying the heart, we talked about the pulmonary artery and the aorta. Both of these carry blood away from the heart. So what features do they have that makes them do their job effectively? First, they carry blood at high pressure. Why? For blood to reach all parts of the body, it has to be pumped by the heart at a high pressure. Okay, so they carry blood at high pressure. Two, they have thick holes and narrow lamens. The thick holes help them withstand the pressure from the heart. Since the blood is at high pressure, if the holes of the arteries are thin, they can burst. Okay, so they have to be thick so that they withstand the pressure that the blood has. Three, they have no valves. Since the pressure from the heart is enough to keep blood moving in one direction, so this answers the question that I raised of why arteries don't have valves. Then they all carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. Why? Because the pulmonary artery carries blood from the heart to the lungs so that the blood gets oxygen and of course offloads carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide from the rest of the body, it is taken to the lungs and it is exchanged with oxygen. So the blood vessel that does that connects the heart and the lungs, is the pulmonary artery. Like I mentioned, when you just see the word pulmonary, think of the lungs. They also appear round in cross section. So if you have been given two veins and they have asked you to identify which one is an artery and which one is a vein, the one that is round is an artery. Then another feature is they are located deeper under the skin than the veins. So why are they located deep under the skin? This is so so that you don't lose a lot of blood in case there is a cut. Okay, in case you cut yourself, um it shouldn't be easy for you to access an artery. Why? Because if you access an artery, it carries blood at high pressure, so just a cut may result in a lot of blood being lost from that cut. So they are located deeper under the skin as compared to the veins. Next, we look at veins. So what do veins do? First, they carry blood towards the heart from other parts of the body. How do they do this job so well? They have these characteristics. One, they carry blood at low pressure, unlike arteries. Because they carry blood at low pressure, they have thin hose and wide lumens. So there's no need to have thick hose because blood is carried at low pressure. Now, carrying blood at low pressure may result in blood flowing backwards or in blood failing to move in one direction. So how do they overcome that? They have valves to keep blood moving in one direction by preventing backflow. They all carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. Okay, the pulmonary vein is the vein that carries oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. So it gets blood with oxygen from the lungs to the heart. So this is the only vein that does not carry deoxygenated blood. As compared to arteries, they appear irregular in cross-section, while arteries appear round. They are located nearer to the skin surface than the arteries. There is no need to bury them deep inside the skin because they don't carry blood at a high pressure, such that when you have a cut, you can't lose much blood. Finally, we look at capillaries. So these are the smallest blood vessels. They form a link between arteries and veins. As arteries approach the organs of the body, they branch into small arteries called capillaries. So capillaries are just smaller arteries. So blood has to be taken to the rest of the body through the arteries. Then blood has to be taken from the rest of the body to the heart through the veins. So the link between the two are the capillaries. So the capillaries have direct contact with the tissue cells. So they will supply blood to the tissue cells so that there is the exchange of material between the tissue cells and the blood. Then again, they'll get the blood and take it to the veins. So in short, the function of the capillaries are to transfer substances between the blood and the tissues. How do they do this job so well? First, the holes of the capillaries are very thin for easy diffusion of materials between the blood and the tissue cells. Okay. Secondly, they form networks to create a large surface area for diffusion. Remember, they are the surface area, the greater the rate of diffusion. So they form networks so that there is a large surface area for diffusion. So this is the diagram that shows a capillary. So as you can see, there's a lumen here which is wide, and the holes are thin so that there's efficient diffusion. Okay, so of course the skin is called the endothelium, just like even veins and arteries have this endothelium. So now there's this knowledge that you need to know. Blood vessels are also named according to the organ they associate with. So this information will make it easy for you to understand certain types of arteries and how and the organs they are associated with. So the way arteries or veins are named, they are named according to the organ they associate with. Okay, so the heart, for example, if a blood vessel is connected to the heart or is associated with heart, the word coronary is usually attached to it. So it's going to be a coronary artery, for example. Then if it's lungs, pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. This one I mentioned before. Then if it's the liver, they put the word hepatic artery, hepatic vein, and also hepatic portal vein. If it's a kidney, we use renal. So we have renal artery and renal vein. So we're going to end this discussion by taking a look at blood. So blood is just a tissue made of 4 components: red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets. The first 2, red blood cells and white blood cells, we have discussed them already. We're just going to take a look at plasma and platelets. Of course, I'll share just a bit of information on red blood cells and white blood cells. So let's start with red blood cells. They're also called erythrocytes. Okay, they are made in the bone marrow, and if it's in babies, it's the liver, because babies don't have bones that are well formed, so they are made in the liver. Okay, so they have a very short lifespan. When they are used, they have to be destroyed, so they are destroyed by the liver, both in babies and in adults. So how are red blood cells adapted to do their function? This one we discussed at length. I've given you thousands of questions about them, and I know you know how they are adapted. Okay, you know about the hemoglobin. Okay, but there's one thing that I just want to emphasize on. So red blood cells don't have a nucleus, and this makes more room for hemoglobin. Okay, most animal cells have a nucleus, but red blood cells don't have a nucleus, so as to have more room for hemoglobin. Then we have white blood cells, which are also called leukocytes. So white blood cells, again, we've discussed, so I'll just maybe highlight just a few issues or a few things you need to know. So these are cells that defend the body against infection or diseases, and are made in the bone marrow also, but they are also made in what are called lymphoid tissue, also lymph nodes, tonsils, thymus, and the spleen. So most of these things you know in other topics that are coming, okay? But you can keep in mind that white blood cells are also made in the bone marrow and also the spleen. So next we go to platelets, which are also called thrombocytes. So these ones have they have a very important function. So let's take a look at what they have. So these are fragments formed during the manufacture of red blood cells. So as red blood cells are being made, platelets are also made. They are just fragments. Okay. They are important for blood clotting. When you cut yourself, when blood starts coming, for that wound to heal, there must be a clot that should be formed on that wound to cover the wound. So these ones have an important job in making sure that you do in making sure that your wound is well protected. So we're going to take a look at the process of blood clotting. It's this one, I need you to know the sequence of events that lead to blood clotting, as the question tends to come and it carries good marks. So the first step is when you have a cut. Okay, so when you have a damaged or injured tissue, as blood is flowing towards that tissue, the platelets in the blood are going to detect that here there is a damaged or injured tissue. So what happens? The platelets are going to release an enzyme called thromboplastin or thrombokinase. Thromboplastin. So once this thromboplastin is released by the platelets, it's going to convert a protein called prothrombin to thrombin. So prothrombin is one of the components of blood proteins. We're going to talk about it, but not that much. But I'm going to show you where it is found. It is part of what are called blood proteins. So it's always in the blood. So this prothrombin is going to be converted to thrombin. Okay, the prothrombin is not active; it's inactive. So once it's acted on by thromboplastin, is going to be converted to its active form called thrombin. Okay, so this enzyme works best in the presence of vitamin K. Therefore, vitamin K is very important in blood clotting. I know when we study nutrition, we never emphasize on vitamin K. Now you should know that there's vitamin K which helps in blood clotting. So once this thrombin has been formed, it also converts another protein called fibrinogen into what is called fibrin. So this fibrinogen is a soluble plasma protein. What it means is it is dissolved in blood. So this thrombin, with the help of calcium ions, is going to turn fibrinogen into fibrin. So fibrin is not soluble, so it's solid. That's the solid that's going to be formed on your wound. Okay, so it was once in the blood, but it was in the form of fibrinogen. Now it has been converted to fibrin, which is an insoluble plasma protein that forms a mesh over the wound to trap blood cells, leading to the formation of a blood clot. So these are the sequence of events that leads to blood clotting. So don't forget the role of vitamin K in helping thromboplastin to convert prothrombin to thrombin, and also the role of calcium ions in helping in helping thrombin to convert fibrinogen to fibrin. So we're going to take a look at the last part, or the last component of blood, which are blood plasma. So this is the liquid part of the blood. Okay, it is made of water and dissolved substances. What are some of the dissolved substances? So they include dissolved foods such as amino acids. When they are absorbed from the ileum, they are transported in the blood as part of the blood plasma. Dissolved metabolic waste. So after reactions have occurred in the body, so the end product of reactions such as urea are supposed to be excreted, okay, as urine, for example. So this urea has to be carried in the blood as part of the dissolved substances of blood plasma. Okay, dissolved chemical substances such as hormones, antibodies, antitoxins, and plasma proteins. What are hormones? We'll discuss this later. What are antibodies? We're going to discuss this also in the next video. And antitoxins, we're also going to discuss them in the next video. Then plasma proteins, these ones, we need to discuss them now, since we talked about their involvement in blood clotting, fibrinogen, and the others. So the function of the plasma proteins, before we can look at the function of blood plasma, the function of blood plasma proteins are: one, to maintain blood viscosity. Viscosity is just the measure of how easy it is for a liquid to flow. Okay, so we can say water and blood have a different viscosity, because water seems to be light as compared to blood, which is a bit thick. Okay, they say blood is thicker than water. Maybe you get my point from there. Not in what that means, but in the sense that blood is just thicker than water, mean that they have different viscosities. Okay, so they make sure that blood has the same viscosity, so that it can do, or it can be flowing with the expected flow rate, or with the expected speed. Okay, then they are very important in causing blood clotting, like we discussed. They also maintain a constant blood pH, and they maintain osmotic balance. What is osmotic balance? For osmosis to occur, there must be different concentrations between regions. Okay, so blood should have a certain concentration, and that concentration is determined by the amount of dissolved substances it has. Okay, so that osmosis should be occurring the way the human body was designed. So now, what are the functions of blood plasma? These are the functions. The first being transportation of dissolved food, second being transportation of metabolic waste, third being transportations of hormones, antibodies, and antitoxins, and the last one is distribution of heat around the body. Heat is made by the liver and the muscles. So once heat is made, for the whole body to enjoy that heat, it has to be distributed by the blood plasma. Okay, so this marks the end of this part. in the next video, which is going to be the last one, we're going to finish up on blood. We're going to take a look at blood groups and other things, and also we're going to do a short transport system, which is part of animals, called the lymphatic system. Happy solving.